Sugar is the culprit, or to some degree related to almost every disease process in our body, from diabetes, cardiovascular disease,
neuroprotective properties. These GLP or GIP medications improve how the pancreas works. The anti-inflammatory potentials from what it's doing is creating a lot of these other health benefits that go down the line.
Well, a common concern people have with Semaglutide Tirzepatide is the stress it's going to put on the liver.
One of the biggest stresses on the liver is too much fat in the liver. Most fat people, unfortunately, have very high amounts of fat in their liver because it's just abundantly available. If you're suppressing one's appetite and they're eating less food and there's less fat in the whole body, you're naturally going to deplete the liver as well from that amount of fat, and you'll be getting a reduction in the fatty liver symptom out, and you'll see the AST and LT values start to drop. The liver is a filter. Of course, by taking Semaglutide Tirzepatide, you're suppressing the want to bring everything into the system, and that, of course, does limit the stress on the liver also. Welcome to the Manlab, where we combine science and health in the pursuit of making men great again.
This is how legends are born. This is how legends are born.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Manlab. This episode we're going to be covering GLP-1, which for anyone who's not familiar with what that is Semaglutide and Tirzepatide, commonly known as Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, or Zepbound. So these have been found to be quite useful beyond just weight loss. And what we're going to be doing is covering all those benefits that GLP-1s cover, so you can see if this is a right fit for you in something that might be beyond weight loss. Before we get into the episode, I do want to make mention, T-Clinics USA does offer 10% off the first package you grab with T-Clinics USA if you mention the Manlab, so whether that's peptides, weight loss like this episode's covering, or if it is things like CJC, ipamorelin, maybe even some testosterone boosting therapy or replacement. Go to bit.ly/T-Clinics USA. That link is in the description of wherever you're watching or listening to this, and mention the Manlab for 10% off. So let's get into it. Jeff, Alex, before we get into the benefits beyond GLP-1s, let's look at, for a quick synopsis for everyone that's listening, can you explain what the GLP-1s are and what they do for our bodies?
Yeah, I mean, so like GLP-1, the category we're talking about today has really gotten popular over the past couple of years with the two weight loss / diabetic drugs that we're all familiar with, which is Ozempic, Wegovy, which are both semaglutide, and then Mounjaro, Zepbound, which are both tirzepatide. And the GLP-1 agonist, which is what semaglutide is, was the kind of more popular first one that comes out. And then more recently, there was a dual peptide product called Tirzepatide, which was GLP-1 plus a GIP, which is two different kind of peptides that do similar but a little bit different benefits when it comes to the benefits of diabetes benefits and the benefits of weight loss. So essentially, these are injectable medications. They actually do come in oral. We don't offer the oral for a variety of reasons. Both cost isn't effective, as well as the purpose in which we use them for isn't very effective. Now, whether that may change in the future, I guess time will tell as far as cost, and because the dosing needs to be considerably higher in order to get the results that we're seeing with the injectable. But the long and short is they originally got FDA approved for improving people who have type 2 diabetes, because they have a remarkable ability to stimulate or help the pancreas secrete more insulin, which is really what a person who's type 2 diabetic kind of lacks. Their insulin levels are generally not high enough in order to deal with the glucose levels that are in the blood sugar. So people have this uncontrolled glucose level because their pancreas doesn't secrete enough insulin. And so that was the original FDA approval. And then during that process, people were losing an abundance amount of weight. And so of course that side effect became something that they seeked out later as a weight loss drug. And now here we are with probably two of the most successful weight loss drugs that have ever hit the market. Billions of dollars of market value, millions and millions of people globally that are using them with just incredible success. And today, we're starting to see that, yes, you have this improvement in diabetes markers, and yes, you're having people who are losing weight, but there's all these other things that are starting to uncover from the use of these medications that I think we're starting to kind of realize that these GLP-1 medications and the GIP, and there's actually a third one coming out here soon that's going to have a third peptide that it works with, that they're going to have some remarkable health improvements. So,
But we can't talk about it just yet?
yeah, we'll talk about it. We don't offer it just yet,
Not
but
really open. Yeah.
yeah, but the thing about it is we have people consistently asking us about how healthy are these medications, how safe are they, and we're starting to realize they're actually more healthy and more safe to be on them than probably to not be on them, and that's not just because we're trying to help people avoid being overweight and or increasing their blood sugar. But I mean, we'll get into each of these things, but just to touch on it in a second, to reduce the risk of Alzheimer's or cognitive decline, to reduce inflammatory processes, to strengthen cardiovascular health, to reduce the stress on the kidneys, to reduce the stress on the liver, and to potentially reduce the impact of cancer, all being found from the use of these medications, that's a pretty remarkable thing. So this is at the infancy stages that we're really starting to kind of open the doors into this world. And we're going to tell you a little about our experience working with them. And then, of course, the studies and the things that we're hearing about and how exciting it is to be part of this whole thing.
So is most of the beneficial side effects we're seeing from GLP-1s commonly associated with the actual function that happens from weight loss? So for example, if you're going to lose weight, automatically, no matter what the method is, you're going to have less strain on the liver, kidneys, etc. Is that predominantly the thing, or is there also a actual molecule reaction in the body that has a benefit that just simple diet can't do?
I would say some's going to come from weight loss, but these GLP or GIP medications improve how the pancreas works, right? So if you look at a lot of inflammatory processes start from uncontrolled blood sugar, when you get into cardiovascular health, plaque deposition. So having your pancreas work better and be able to have better carbohydrate metabolism, better body composition, better lipid profiles, it just goes down the line from there. So it's just neuroprotective properties for Parkinson's or Alzheimer's are showing So, I think the anti-inflammatory potentials from what it's doing is creating a lot of these other health benefits that go down the line.
What's those neuroprotective benefits you mentioned?
Brain protective. So, as far as having controlled blood sugar when it comes to cognitive function, a lot of when you look at Alzheimer's, a lot of times diabetes could lead to that as well. So it's obviously you're correcting one, and in turn you're improving the chances or the potential for others. Even cancer, a lot of times cancer feeds off sugar, having controlled blood sugar, and once again, inflammation is this kind of the root of all disease processes. So it's doing a really good job of helping keep inflammatory processes down.
Yeah, I mean, we are a closed loop system, right? I mean, our body is essentially what one thing kind of triggers will have many more effects down the road, as we've talked many times over different therapies in these podcasts. But this one, I think we're starting to see things like you're mentioning. Is there a direct impact on the kidneys that doesn't have something to do with the other two benefits that it provides, meaning lowering blood sugar or reducing, food intake, which inherently has some reduction in the stress in the kidneys and liver function? They're all somewhat tied together. But when you really look at the use of these products and then determining, should I stop taking them because now I have achieved this goal, and or I may not have an obesity problem or a weight loss issue, should I even consider using these products as potentially some other side effect issue that we're here to talk about? Look, we're going to put a preface on this. We don't condone, using medications that are unnecessary, because at the end of the day, like I've said before, nothing goes without risk. And you need to make a personal decision whether the risk of using any one medication, the reward is worth it. But, thinking through the processes of how do I prevent myself from having, like Jeff mentioned, cognitive decline. If you're sitting in a situation where, both your parents and potentially your grandparents and in your family history, you have a significant amount of Alzheimer's or dementia problems, and you're wondering, what can I do to avoid that potential inevitability? What tools can I put in my arsenal of things that I can potentially prevent that? Yeah. Is Semaglutide Tirzepatide a potential weapon? That's something to take into consideration. And the reason being is that if you're lowering your blood sugar, blood sugar directly has a correlation, elevated blood sugar, I should say, has a correlation with Alzheimer's.
Find out if you may have low testosterone for free with the ADAM test. Now, sometimes it's a little bit nerve-wracking to go into a clinic to get a full blood panel to find out your hormone levels. And sometimes you might just want to sort of kick the tires just a little bit. If you are that person, the ADAM test is for you. All it is a couple of questions that are completely non-intrusive, non-invasive, that will help give an indication to you whether you may or may not have low testosterone. And the best part is the ADAM test is accurate up to 88% of the time. So for something as simple as a questionnaire, that is a very high number. Now, if you want to make use of that, you can do it online right now. It takes less than 30 seconds to fill out, and it is at bit.ly/free ADAM test. That's free ADAM test. Now, if you don't want to remember that, the link is in the description of wherever you're listening or watching this podcast. And then after you've filled out the questionnaire, you will now have a better idea of whether you may or may not have low testosterone, and if you need to take the next step, which is a detailed blood panel with a clinic such as T Clinics USA. So again, to make use of that, go to bit.ly/free ADAM test, and let's continue to making men great again. Let's get back to the show.
So, they know that type 2 diabetes actually leads to what's considered type 3 diabetes, which is Alzheimer's, because that consistent elevation of blood sugar starts to impact the brain's ability to function correctly. It's known that if you're following a ketogenic style diet or a carnivore diet, although it may have cardiovascular impacts, like we talked about on our cardiovascular show, we know that you would have a very low risk of Alzheimer's and cognitive decline. So it's like, if you're not overweight and you're not diabetic, but like your family history has a tremendous history of risk associated with dementia and cognitive decline diseases, I would want to know that this option potentially could help limit that risk of coming along. And then, of course, assess, is the risk of taking the medication worth the benefit of helping me avoid that really dilapidating and dangerous and scary disease that if I knew my family had dementia in it, I'd be terrified of becoming a patient and or losing my memory when I get into my older years. We all look forward to our retirement, and now you get to that point finally and like you can't remember anything. Like that's awful,
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going to talk about why this option should be considered.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to go through a couple of the things I've got written down here for some of the benefits that I found, and you can elaborate on for sure. One of the benefits people are finding with things such as semaglutide and tirzepatide is the lowering of insulin resistance. Why does GLP-1 cause that byproduct?
I'll let Jeff go on this one. This is
the
world.
GLP-1s or even the GIPs, they actually improve the B cells in the pancreas. So, let's kind of take a step back. It's a peptide. Peptides are chains or sequences of aminos that initiate responses in the body that typically maybe aren't happening or stop happening. We all know most people overweight or people that eat too many carbohydrates end up insulin resistant. So like carbs come in. Normally our pancreas is meant to release insulin to take the carbohydrate to get used by the cells of the body. But if you don't release enough and it doesn't get utilized, circulating glucose goes up, your A1C goes up, and now you have like pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes, right? So these GLP-1 peptides actually initiate the kind of help the B cells in the pancreas. So when carbs come in, it actually, less insulin resistance will happen. It's able to work like it should in the first place, therefore pulling blood sugar down.
And what's the benefit of bringing down insulin resistance for people?
Well, I mean, listen, if you're not moving, if you're not releasing enough insulin properly, most of that tends to circulate. That energy gets circulated, doesn't get used by our systems. And typically, where does that get stored? That extra energy gets stored in adipose tissue. Put on some body fat, you get less active, you start having cardiovascular issues or cholesterol issues, and it starts the cascade of negative,
Well, think about what's the opposite of insulin resistance is insulin sensitivity, right? So you want to be sensitive to insulin where just a little bit of it goes a long way. You want, when your pancreas senses blood sugar being present, to be able to produce just enough of this insulin so it actually does the job it's intended to do by having a high sensitivity to the insulin. If you have a resistancy to it, it requires a lot more of it in order to do the job that it's supposed to do. And the pancreas, like any other thing, has only the ability to do what it's intended to do. So of course, over the years, we eat like shit, and we're eating processed foods, and we're eating high fructose corn syrups, and we're eating a constant amount of processed foods. The body was never supposed to deal with the food that we're dealing with today, this science created crap that's present. And we talk a lot about, quality of food choices, but unfortunately, like the modern American diet, and for that matter, the global diet nowadays, is very, very, very processed foods. And there's a lot of sugars that are not normal, not natural. So you're having a huge amount of people becoming very resistant to the insulin that their pancreases are capable of producing. So now here you take this medication and you're kind of giving the pancreas a little bit of help. You're saying to it, I got your back, buddy. Like I'm gonna help you do your job more so. I'm going to increase the amount of insulin that you produce in response to the glucose and the blood sugar that's found. And you assist it in doing its job rather than like, it's not doing the job for it. It's
like
assisting
insulin
it.
would be doing the job for it.
Right. A type 1 diabetic actually takes a shot of insulin and says, out of the way, pancreas, I got you. I'm going to take over your job. Just like if you've listened to our testosterone shows in the past, you learn that the gonads over time become out of a job when testosterone's present. Well, if you start taking insulin over time, the pancreas will do the same and say, well, screw you. I guess I'm not here to do my job anymore. And so the last thing you want to do is get yourself to a point where your pancreas gives up. And so the danger of people who are pre-diabetic versus diabetic versus becoming full-blown insulin-dependent diabetic is a very scary reality. We see people when they're doing their glucose levels and they're fasting that, if you're at 99 and above, you're in a pre-diabetic zone between 99 and like 115, 120.
Yeah.
You're in this pre-diabetic zone, and then 120 and above, you're in a type 2 diabetic zone. So, if you're on the brink, let's say you're 106, right? You're in this pre-diabetic world. 5-10 years ago, a practitioner would tell you, you got to cut out the sugar. You got to chill out on the food that you're eating because you're overwhelming your system with sugar to where your pancreas cannot keep up. It's obvious. Your blood sugar's too high at fast that it's not controlling the sugars at a pace that it's capable of doing. So you had these drugs like metformin, or we would tell people to use supplements like our glucose support, or vanadyl sulfate, chromium polynicotinate, and you have like cinnamon and other things. And the goal was to kind of help the pancreas by dropping blood sugar, but those supplements can only do so much. So come along now, you have these drugs, these GLP-1 agonists and these GIPs, they're really doing the job significantly better. Like, to a point where you're seeing people whose hemoglobin A1Cs or HA1C coming down like a full point or two. And so, what an A1C is a measurement is like a 3-month measurement of someone's fasting glucose level. So oftentimes we'll do a blood test on somebody like, oh, well, last night I had ice cream or last night I had sugar, and they give themselves an excuse. In the A1C world, there is no excuse because this is a true measurement of a 3-month average or so of of that glucose level. So I don't give a shit what you ate yesterday or what you ate this morning. If your levels of your A1C are elevated consistently, it means that you've been pretty crappy eating for a period of time. And you've essentially overstressed your body's ability to cope with, that sugar. And what it means is the pancreas over that 3-month period has not been able to keep up. So in lies, again, why these drugs are so impactful for people who are using this for diabetes control is because it's lowering that. So now think about elevated blood sugar, what it's doing. Sugar is the culprit, or to some degree related to almost every disease process in our body. Almost every single one, from diabetes to cardiovascular disease to inflammatory processes, both the one you feel like when you feel like your knees and like elbows and like neck feel like shit, inflammation in your arterial system to where, of course, like you're getting atherosclerosis and you're starting to get calcium deposits, you're getting inflammation, you can get your skin disorders, people get rosacea, and then they get these other types of skin issues from elevated blood sugars. I know like rosacea, we've talked about this in the past, when you go on a carnivore diet and all of a sudden you're like, man, my skin cleared up really nicely, and all of a sudden my aches and pains went away, and it's because that fucking sugar that's been creating all these problems isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
And we know sugar is a problem, but like, let's be honest, we all like
so
it,
good.
you know, and it's so good. And we're almost in a world, it's like sugar is a drug. It's a drug in the sense it's addictive, but it's a drug in the sense that our bodies kind of utilize it as a fast energy source. It's easy. Like if you eat a banana and you go for a run, man, that sugar is like high octane fuel and your body rips through it. Likewise, you know, when we talked about the carnivore diet in the past, your body also understands to burn fat as energy. And so like by having elevated sugar, it's easy to kind of do things that we do if you're going to use it.
Yeah.
But if you're elevating your blood sugar and you're gonna sit on your ass, you know, like most people do, well, then all that sugar, that high octane fuel you put in your system, it doesn't know what to do with it and it stores it as fat. And then that fat isn't just in your love handles and on your face, it also becomes visceral and it gets underneath the organs and it creates other problems. It becomes cardiovascularly healthy or unhealthy. So it's a very, very slippery slope when you start to introduce something as simple as too much sugar into your body and your body can't fight back against it.
Yeah. So a common problem people, or a common concern people have with things like semaglutide, tirzepatide, is the stress it's going to put on the liver. What have you seen as outcomes from taking semaglutide have happened to people's livers?
I mean, one of the biggest stresses on the liver is too much fat in the liver. Fatty liver is one of the reasons why we see a lot of stress on the liver, right? So, you know, if you have too much fat suspended through your body, through triglycerides, through elevation, and just eating like shit, I mean, most fat people, unfortunately, or overweight people, unfortunately, have, you know, very high amounts of fat in their liver because it's just abundantly available. And so like anything, if you're suppressing one's appetite and they're eating less food and there's less fat in the whole body, you're naturally going to deplete the liver as well from that amount of fat. And you'll be getting a reduction in the fatty liver symptom out, and you'll see the AST and LT values start to drop. Usually too, the liver is a filter. So, you know, it filters everything. And if you're eating a lot of calories, and typically with calories becomes a lot of byproduct, toxins, the shit that's in our foods, we're drinking more calories. And unfortunately, most people isn't gonna be drinking water. They're drinking sodas and alcohols. So less things are running through the system, you know? And so of course, by taking semaglutide tirzepatide, you're kind of suppressing the want to bring everything into the system. And that of course does limit the stress on the liver also. So am I going to say
it's more beneficial on the liver than...
Yeah, I haven't seen anything that I
than
can't tell you. It's just in the course of us using it for a long period of time, like no negative on
my
AST,
liver enzymes
ALT.
are down because of using
Yeah.
it. I've always had relatively elevated, and I've seen numerous clients that have had histories after long histories of fatty liver. All of a sudden, their liver enzymes come into range.
So it's a better thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
there's no way to sit here and try to deny the fact that there's a health benefit to consuming less food, right? I mean, longevity experts for as long as we've been in this industry have kind of always known that the less you eat within a level of safety.
The less compared to what we're eating currently.
Right, to a point with the healthy. Like obviously starvation is a different question, but if you're eating what your caloric demand to a point is, and you eat lesser of that, you know, you're going to basically have a longer, healthier life.
Yeah.
That is known. Like you look at these blue zones, these people that live to 100, you know, they're always living in a low calorie environment because it's less stress on the body. You're not putting your system through all that taxing ability of having to process and deal with food. Also, what's in food? Like carcinogenic food items, right? I mean, so you're lessening the amount of presence of, you know, disease and you know, chemicals and all that kind of crap that we're ingesting, right? So that by itself has another benefit that you can't deny the fact that these organs are going to say thank you for like chilling out on how much stuff has to come through me.
Quickly, before we get back to the episode, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't on whatever channel you're watching or listening to the Manlab. And if you're listening on Spotify, if you could leave a 5-star review on the channel page, that would be greatly appreciated because that will help continue to push it a little bit further for whoever is looking for information to help improve their health. Now, on the topic of information, if you are on YouTube, you can leave a comment below on this episode and we we will respond to it with as much information as possible, or it might be another episode down the road. The reason this is important is because the more questions you guys ask, the more we know what we need to do to serve you guys better in future episodes. So comment on YouTube, leave a 5-star review, hit subscribe, and let's continue to help making men great again. Let's get back to the show.
And does that apply to the same with the kidneys as well? Like most people seeing positive outcomes from
Well,
the use
you got to
of
think about it.
GLP-1s?
So it's all going to stem back to probably eating better, eating less, losing weight, right? Hypertension is probably one of the biggest things that stresses the kidneys out, and uncontrolled hypertension over time typically just makes hypertension worse, and it becomes where they have to manage with medication. So, getting body composition down, you'll see just from the people on the GLPs that blood pressure is getting better, and obviously kidney function is getting better.
Yeah, I mean, hypertension is generally not a cardiovascular problem. It's generally a kidney issue. And so when the kidneys go under stress, their abilities to kind of process sodium and help the diuretic effect of water becomes more limited, right? And so, again, eating less and controlling sugar, the kidneys are going to operate at a way more efficient rate because they're dealing with less. Also, the kidneys are there to a lot of times have to filter through like proteins and stuff that we burn up. As we know, like creatinine is a measurement of how much protein essentially is kind of going through the body, both consumed as well as broken down. When you break down muscle tissue, you do see that in the in kidney function. But also, if you have a high protein diet, you see that in the kidneys. So yes, I mean, having less food going through the body, you're going to have a relief on the kidney function, and to a point allow it to have some restoration, a little repair. Luckily, the kidneys can filter a lot, but the less we have to put through them, especially if they've already kind of shown signs of stress and weakness, giving them a little bit of a break through the use of these medications, both by the presence of sugar and the presence of the amount of food and everything else that we put through our systems, is going to be welcomed.
Yeah, and so when it comes to, you guys mentioned earlier about cancer and helping with, with the GLP-1s helping with cancer, is that closely to do with the fact that it's just, again, killing our cravings for sugar, and therefore we're not feeding cancers? Like, it's not going to reverse cancer, I'm guessing, but it's going to help slow down
back
the growth.
to inflammation, right? So, obviously just decreasing inflammation is going to help with cardiovascular when it comes to the onset of type 2 diabetes. And then, when it comes to there was something I was going to say, and I just drew a blank.
I mean, tumors and cancers feed off of sugar.
Yeah.
So
it's going to slow down the
if you've been
production.
diagnosed with cancer, ever known somebody who has cancer, the first thing they were told to do is to go into a ketogenic and a low sugar type of diet. And if they're not told to do that, then they've been told wrong, because the lower their blood sugar levels are, the less presence of sugar, the less you're feeding that cell its ability to grow. So I'm sure there are cancers that are probably not true within that scope, but a lot of them are, and definitely, that's something that to take into consideration. So I don't really sit here comfortably talking about semaglutide or tirzepatide as an anti-cancer drug.
Yeah.
I think anybody should be very careful to ever say anything, whether it's for or not, cancer's promotion or beneficial.
I mean, more like it's because it would be like it's like a similar rule to diet. Like, if you're not going to be eating a lot of processed foods, you're less likely to be feeding something that has potential to become cancerous. So I'd imagine that the tool of semaglutide helps with the diet, which therefore helps with
it's going to help metabolic health.
Yeah.
Right? Metabolically, you're going to be better. Your system's going to run better. You're going to be able to process food and nutrients and calories and sugar better. So, I think the main thing is just metabolically being a better spot across the board is going to help fight against that.
Yeah, one of the things that, I talk to so many people who have been through this journey of semaglutide and tirzepatide, have come off it, come back on it, come off it. Oftentimes it's not because I put weight back on. People really say how great they feel on these things. And you think it's the opposite, because we talk about the side effects, and by all means, you should know what the side effects are. Like, these things are not going without fault. I mean, semaglutide can make you feel nauseous. It can make you feel sick to your stomach. I get guys and women that have GI problems, diarrhea, constipation, acid reflux. But then there's the positive side effects. You know, people saying, man, I can't remember the last time I haven't had knee pain. And not because they lost weight, but because the inflammation, they just feel so much better. They don't have that nagging neck problem anymore. Their skin flare-ups are a lot better. They don't have dandruff. They're like things that they've been plagued with for so many years because there's some kind of a process that's happening with the sugar introduction. Really is reduced and significantly better.
Nuviva Medical Weight Loss has helped over 50,000 men and women in Florida lose over 500,000 pounds in body fat. Now, there are wonder drugs out there like Semaglutide and Tirzepatide, but it's important that these tools are used properly and safely with the correct guidance, because that guidance is what will help you make sure that you're losing that unwanted body fat while keeping the lean muscle mass. Nuviva Medical Weight Loss has over 10 clinics statewide in Florida with expert coaches who are with you the entire way, helping you with any habit adjustment, large or small. The secret behind Nuviva's continual success with their clients is their in-office expert experience. You will speak directly with a support coach, and if you have any questions, you will get immediate answers. If you are struggling, you will get immediate adjustments or pivots that will keep you on track with your goals. And what's great is you can choose the route of your weight loss goals. So if you just want to take diet adjustments and some supplements, you can do it. However, if you want to go a little bit of a stronger, faster approach and use semaglutide or tirzepatide, the Nuviva expert coaches can also help you along the way with that as well. So if you have a lot of pounds to lose or even just a few pounds and you know that having some support with an expert coach will get you there faster, contact Nuviva at either nuvivaweightloss.com or send them a message on Instagram at Nuviva Weight Loss and mention the Manlab for a little perk. That is Nuviva, Nuviva weightloss.com or at Nuviva Weight Loss on Instagram. So hit up Nuviva, get an expert coach, get that support you want, and let's get you feeling amazing again and lighter again. Let's get back to the show.
We also mentioned, we were chatting earlier about some forecasted concerns you've got with GLP-1, semaglutide, tirzepatide, about some people might be starting to develop some dependency issues though surrounding GLP-1s. What is the things that you see in the future with this about people's misuse of those medications?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's kind of we're in a brand new world right now of a very exciting, kind of frontier in a new drug category. We've been part of it for about 3 years between the weight loss clinics at Nuviva, and we've been part of it here at T Clinics USA. But we're also witnessing so many new players to the game who are taking advantage of the attention that these drugs are coming with. Mm-hmm. And, if you're careless or you're not responsible with how you take these medications, remember that you're taking a medication that's giving you kind of the willpower and the capability of like dealing with food. So now you kind of have a leash on you, right? So this leash is inhibiting your ability to get to that food as much as you used to. And also that same leash is inhibiting your body's response to the food you choose. So it's also allowing you to some degree to eat a little bit less responsible when it comes to the sugar and not deal with the repercussion of it as much. Well, at some point, like these medications, like most medications, you build up tolerances to them. So semaglutide and tirzepatide have an escalation or a titration model where you start with a small amount of the medication and once a week you take a shot, or twice a week you take a shot, depending on how you like to dose yourself. And over time, you have to increase the strength of it to continue to get the same effect. What we're finding is that we're only a year or two into the use of this and people are already at the max dose, which is scary because now,
So they're just eating through it basically right now.
Well, they're either eating through it or trying to use it for what it's not intended for. Mm. We live in a world where we want instant gratification. People have always had a tendency to abuse drugs, right? I mean, that's just the world that we live in, where if you look at the pain management kind of world where Percocet used to be enough, people graduated to oxys, and where oxys aren't working, people are now using fentanyl. Like at some point, people just decide that a little bit gets me this far, so I'll take a little bit more, will get me that much further. We're very big advocates of having a controlled diet and a controlled appetite. I'm not an advocate of taking the stuff to a point where you cannot even think about eating, and to a point where you're willing to starve the weight off. So unfortunately, we're not, you know, the average clinic out there that is out there just with, you know, this
Pushing drugs.
this money driven mentality of sell more, take more, take more. You know, we want people to take it responsibly for the long haul. So, you know, kind of getting back to the original question, what is my forecast of risk? My forecast is that you've been on this leash, you've been put into the real world, you've been able to handle the world because this leash is only so long. But now this leash seems to stretch out a little further kind of every day or week that goes by. And before you know it, you're on this long ass leash and you don't have as much control as you once did. So now where do you turn from here? Where do you go when you've maxed out the abilities of these drugs to do what they did for you over the past 2 years? And now sugar is becoming, you know, way more impactful of your life, and that inflammation's coming back, and you're starting to find that your glucose levels are higher than they were. Where do you go when your appetite has started to increase and your caloric intake has ramped up? Where do you go from here when the food companies that have started to fight back and making the foods that they're producing more tasty and more
GLP-1 resistant.
more GLP resistant drug? Yeah, listen, if we're sitting here thinking that big food hasn't thought about how to fight back against big pharma, or if you really believe the conspiracy that they're all tied together and they're just self-feeding each other, the ecosystem, then
Which I would believe.
then you're just fooling yourself. I mean,
So are they starting to try and develop food that will bypass the satiation that GLP-1s create?
That's kind of
and not only it's the satiation, they're making them taste better and more tempting and more addictive.
So that people can eat through their semaglutide.
Yeah, listen, I mean, you know, these guys who work at Procter & Gamble and Kraft Foods and all these other, they know what is going on, and they're losing a tremendous amount of people buying the shit food that's out there.
And McDonald's like turned around a loss for the first time, I think, in America last year or something.
There was but
Is that attributed to the Ozempic stuff like taking off?
I mean, I don't know if it's that or the cost of food, choice and inflation being a product.
$18 a Big Mac.
Combination of all the above. I mean, I've seen all these different companies talking about how it's impacting their bottom line, from the casinos in Las Vegas to even like seeing how it's
Ozempic, semaglutide, and all that, is it affecting casinos?
Well, so this was part of what I was going to say. So it has this weird impact on addictive personalities.
Really?
You'll find that for some reason, and I truly don't know why, but the GLP-1 receptors not only just fight against the food addiction, but by any addiction that you have. So there's people who are addicted to cocaine, who are addicted to sex, who are addicted to gambling, who are addicted to alcohol, all of a sudden have no desires for those things.
Really?
Now, there are rehab facilities and addiction services that are starting to utilize these medications as ways to get people off of these drugs or off of these temptations. And likewise, the same problem becomes those temptations don't go anywhere. You know, they're still going to be present. But now the introduction of these drugs, if you build up a tolerance to them, then what happens? But yes, I mean,
like
I
if you
will
come
say,
off it, you kind of like
you may be
really
like
in trouble,
bat out of hell, right? Or just like a line out of a cage, and all of a sudden be Vegas just on a rip, you know? So,
an expensive week.
yeah, but no, I will say like this is something anecdotally that I experienced. I went on these medications and I completely stopped drinking alcohol. Like I had no desire to drink. And to a point, it wasn't that the flavor changed. It wasn't that the side effect of having a hangover was worse. I just didn't have the desire to drink.
Didn't care for it.
And I will talk to clients who were vaping, who had a hard time vaping, they were stopping vaping, all of a sudden don't do it anymore. Clients that were taking those Zyn things, didn't want to dip in it, didn't want them anymore. I knew clients that would be open with me, say they were doing drugs like cocaine and other drugs, saying, look, I just stopped doing it. I'm not fun anymore. You know,
Fun body.
you just lose, it's like you're losing that thing in your brain that is part of the thing that makes you addicted and wanting to have those food choices.
Is that to do
too.
with like the GLP-1 receptors or
Yes.
something? So it's something, and that's actual brain function that
Yes.
these medications.
There's a
are
lot
doing.
of GLP-1 receptors in the brain, a lot. And
Yeah.
part of the way these drugs work, so like when you're eating food, you know, there's a point in a meal where your brain is told by your body that stop being hungry. It's not that your stomach is full so much. It's not that like you've taken enough calories. It's truly like at some point, it's almost like, I mean, hell, it's like a shit analogy, but it makes sense to me. When you're filling up your gas tank, there's a point where like that little ball hits the thing and stops
Yeah.
the thing from overflowing. Like it's like that little ball like hits your brain and says, all right, I'm not hungry anymore. Like I push this food away. Same reason why, like if you're eating after 20 minutes and you kind of take a break and you just sit and have a conversation, you find yourself not hungry anymore.
Yep.
It's like you allow that food to get from like stomach to brain and that connection, say, okay, he's full, stop being hungry. Why is that happening? It's because the GLP-1 receptor is tripped. Like bang, hit, stop being hungry. So now you're not hungry and you don't want food anymore. But again, that same receptor in the brain can be being tripped by the alcohol or the drugs or those consumption models. Like I said, yes, like casinos, we're feeling a bottom line difference because people don't want to gamble as much anymore, just because the introduction of them was becoming problematic.
So it could save some people a lot of money.
Could save
individuals, not big business.
If you're the big business, you're like, fuck these drugs. You know?
You're in trouble.
But no, they're using them as an experiment in these addictive services, drug rehab places, as ways to help people get off these things.
Yeah. Is GLP-1s, are they useful for people that are trying to go to the gym to get jacked per se, like not just for weight loss?
So I think honestly, there's such a unique potential there, just to be able to, like, if you eat carbohydrates as a guy, if you're eating too much and you don't utilize it fully, obviously that could limit your muscle recovery, your muscle growth. So, by improving how carbohydrates move through the system and get to where they need to go, drastic improvement. Now, I think it's the poison's in the portion, right, when it comes to dosing. And what we were talking about too, a lot of what people are looking for from these GLP, GIP medications are actually the side effect, right? Because they've been around forever. You have, Trulicity and dulaglutide and some of these other ones, but Semaglutide was like the first one where people had a significant weight loss over like a 68-week trial. But it was from the gastric slowdown where they felt full early in the meal. And so a lot of those side effects that people are seeing success with are also the body adapts to that really, really quick as they go. And so you have a lot of people taking them. And like he said, they're taking them kind of as a crutch, I guess, and not really changing anything. And they're adapting. And if you do a diabetic dose, how it's intended for like a type 2 diabetic, they'll scale them after a month and scale them after a month. And next thing you know, in 4 or 5 months, you're at max dose. Is the pancreas working better? Yes. Is it improved? Yes. But you lose that appetite control, satiation, early craving side of thing that comes with it. So it's like, I think people need to be more focused on like fixing the problem and at least using the opportunity while they have this window to fix their food, learn about nutrition, learn how to kind of take the weight off the right way. And then once it starts wearing off, because where do you go next? And that's what I think we're going to start seeing over the next year. I mean, we're seeing it now. The people are going to like, well, shit, I'm taking this and I'm at a max dose or I can't afford it. My insurance won't cover it. And they didn't fix anything, and they're gonna start piling the weight back on.
Yeah, because dependency of any drug is a problem.
Jeff, I got a question for you because you know this world a little better than I do. When you're like a bodybuilder, for example, and you're in that process of trying to bulk up and gain muscle mass. Now, granted, I know this is an appetite suppression to effect, but let's say you figure out a way to eat past the appetite suppression effect. How would insulin, exactly. Take ibutamorin, it'll stimulate your ghrelin. But how would the insulin property of this, would it help or hurt you in your trial to gain muscle mass?
No, so it's actually gonna help because you gotta think, if you're eating, you're trying to put more glycogen or more carbohydrates into the system, over time you will get some insulin resistance unless you're doing, the necessary stuff or taking like a GDA type supplement. So you kind of lose that.
What's GDA?
Glucose disposal agent. So we use like vanadyl sulfate, chromium polynicotinate, alpha lipoic acid, cinnamon. A lot of those supplements will help kind of move carbohydrates to be able to be used by our system. So
essentially if I eat like a bowl of white rice, like post-training or something, in order to get it from like bloodstream into muscle.
I mean, that's still insulin response.
So this drug will help with that.
Because, yeah, absolutely. Because if you're over time, if you're constantly eating a lot more calories, a lot more carbohydrates.
So you can see people using this during their bulking and
so the only thing there's a catch on that because depending on the dose that they're taking, because you're kind of fighting trying to eat more food, but if you're not hungry and you feel full early, it's going to limit how you get calories.
That's what I'm saying, if you could eat past
But when it comes to like metabolically, you're
you would have to like try and eat past the semaglutide.
But I like it. I eat relatively lower carb, but I've noticed like, because I take a low dose of both, and I notice like I eat carbs, I don't get tired. Like they utilize, I feel like my muscles get a lot more of the glycogen. I have that energy stored away for my workouts. So there is a place for it. I think on a guy trying to get massive, it's going to be a battle trying to be able to get the food in and not feel sick because, the slow gastric emptying. But I think of everybody across the board, not to condone that you should just take it, but the benefits that come from it and improving your carbohydrate metabolism and how your body works, the insulin and pancreas, there's tons of benefits.
So if someone doesn't have weight loss goal, like you've mentioned that someone trying to get jacked, massive.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
Goal, but what about someone who's just like, I want to maintain or decrease my body fat percentage a little bit, but I'm not using it for weight loss. Is a GLP-1 effective for that person? If so, how would they?
I'm not trying to get leaner, but I still want my pancreas to work better. And obviously, if I keep my overall glucose lower, my inflammation is going to be lower. My cancer risk is lower. Right. That's why I used to take metformin. It's just that came with some nasty sides.
Longevity side. Yeah. Because I feel like it's easier to be leaner when you're on these medications, and not because you're eating less, but because, like, if I eat the exact same diet, both on and off this, I feel I would be leaner being on it because my blood sugar would be lower all the time and controlled. And so my body would be more willing to burn and tap into fat storages and would not compete against the glycogen levels and the glucose levels that, are typically suspended higher. And I've noticed even in my own physique, in my wife's physique, when she's using it, the capability of kind of working a little bit less hard in the gym and still getting the same leanness. And yes, true, there is a little bit of diet improvement. Although if I ate, again, the same exact diet, I still feel the amount of time on the cardio would be less, and my getting into fat burning zone would be more fast forwarded. So yeah, I feel like there's a place for this for people who are not overweight and just in typical, like us, good shaped guys or women who are not like actively in bodybuilders. Even if you are, I guess there's a place for it, because I'm sure you in your past life would have loved this drug to be present
amazing for dieting. Oh my gosh.
Like these bodybuilders of today.
Hey guys, so just quickly, we've noticed a lot of you commenting that you're not sure where you can go to get trusted and safe peptides, semaglutide, tirzepatide, testosterone replacement therapy, or testosterone boosting therapy. And we wanted to just make mention that T Clinics USA is one of those places. Now, Alex and Jeff, who you see in this podcast frequently, they're probably in this podcast right now with me, they are from T Clinics USA. And as they've shown in episode after episode, details is what matters. So just because you may want something or think you need something, they are going to make sure that you are getting the thing that is right for the goal that you have. And what's better is they offer a 10% introduction discount to anyone who is listening to the Manlab. So that is you. So if you wanted to make use of that, get peptides or testosterone from a place that you can trust that have your goals in mind and want to show you the right way to get there, go to tclinicsusa.com, mention the Manlab for 10% off your first package, and you can even ask Alex or Jeff directly any questions you may or may not have, which is kind of cool. So just again, tclinicsusa.com. If you don't want to remember that, the link is in the description of wherever you are listening or watching this podcast. Mention the Manlab in the contact form and you will receive 10% off your first package. Now let's get back to the show.
There's guys actually, you have like Jason Theobald and some people I know that have been in the space, and they're starting to use it with a lot of athletes. I've kind of vetted it out already, and it would have been a game changer if I was trying to kind of diet. It would allow me to be able to eat more carbohydrates when I diet. I'd be able to kind of keep a lot more muscle tissue, not feel like complete crap. My blood sugar would have been a lot more, because a lot of people I think the GLPs or the GIPs, semaglutide or tirzepatide, they class it with insulin, and it's so different. It's the opposite. You're making your body do whatever it's willing to do or improve how it does it. So you don't get these. Maybe when you first start with like tirzepatide, you sometimes will hit like a little bit of a hypoglycemic state, but things start balancing out. And just like if I was to put you into ketosis, your blood sugar goes low, it hits a critical low, you switch over, you start using ketones, everything balances back out. Same thing happens with like the GLPs, is your blood sugar just gets a lot more stable and less volatile.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like if you've ever done a keto diet, or again, when we were doing carnivore, how that first week sucks and you're like tired and you're kind of lethargic, you don't want to go to the gym, and all of a sudden you're like almost on cloud nine. Yeah. Like your brain's firing at all cylinders, and your energy levels are kind of like, where's this even coming from? And it's like you're not competing against the ups and downs and swings of the diet you're eating. It's just your body's in this like stable place.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know we don't intend to talk too much about weight loss, but it kind of circles back around to it. I think one of the really like things that I'm excited about this stuff though is the preventative care aspect. You know, we're all worried about what our future looks like. We're all worried, am I going to get cancer? Am I going to have Alzheimer's? Am I going to have heart disease? Am I going to have inflammation that's going to cause me to have like arthritis in my joints and my knees? You know, and it's like for me, I am not interested in taking this to knock my appetite out any more than maybe just kind of temper maybe one of those cookies that after I have dinner. And
Or if I have one, I don't want 10.
Right, but I think like that's why I personally use Tirzepatide at low dose. When I actively am trying to diet and lose weight, I kind of step it up to use Semaglutide only because I feel like it has more appetite control for me. But I'm not using it for weight loss. You know, I'm using it because of preventative benefits. I notice I'm sharper. My days feel like I can conquer longer. I don't have that up and down as much. I feel my joints are just in such a better place. I've noticed my skin is nicer, like in having been on it, and I don't know if it's attributed to that or other stuff I'm taking too inadvertently. But I just noticed
Cocktail.
like yes, this is part of the
Just
cocktail.
metabolically better. But
It's like I just know that shit that's in our body called blood sugar just isn't there. Right? And even if I do have a cheat meal, like we eat a little bit worse than, you know, when we're here on the road and filming these shows than I typically do when I'm home. I don't have that like feeling in the middle of the afternoon and feel like I'm going to fall asleep because I feel like my body's handling, you know, the presence of stuff. So guys and girls, you're listening to the show and you're wondering, well, I'm not overweight. Like I this stuff, you know, what am I even listening to the show for? It's not about being overweight. It's about using something that's controlling this enemy that we're all always trying to fight against, which is elevated blood sugar that can cause Alzheimer's disease and cognitive decline and cancer and arthritis and everything that we've talked about all along these years, everything that everybody's worried about. You can use this medication as a way to fight back and to prevent a whole lot of things.
Yeah, it's interesting that mentality part too, though. So I'd be interested to see as studies come out with GLP-1s, the mentality, because if it's able to help with self-control, just even beyond weight loss and eating, if it's, like you said, addiction of any type, whether it's gambling, drugs, women, men, whatever your preference is, I do wonder if there's how long until they have other studies where it's like, does this also have some sort of self-control and focus benefit to it that we're not addressing fully just yet? Because weight loss is such a visual thing. Like someone can tell you they've lost 30 pounds, you can see it. If someone says like, I gave up gambling $10,000 a month, I can't see that. You know, so it'd be interesting to see those studies.
I mean, many medications become what they're going to be, not because of what they're intended for, but because of the side effects that they offer, right? Like if you look at Viagra, it originally came out as a blood pressure regulating medication. It did not come out as an erectile dysfunction drug. Botox originally did not come out for a cosmetic improvement. It came out for curing migraines and muscle spasm. There is no better testament to what a medication can do than putting into the general population under some version and then noticing all these other improvements. And like I said, I think the most prolific, important, impactful thing that we're going to see coming out of this out the gate is its dramatic reduction in cognitive decline diseases. I mean, Alzheimer's and dementia, if it alone has an impact on those things, would just be an absolute game changer for people who are struggling or concerned about that. And then as far as cardiovascular disease, and we sat here and talked to a cardiologist the other day, the other week, I should say, and, you know, Dr. Arsman's opinion always said, although I'm not going to be prescribing it for those purposes, I cannot deny its positive impact on cardiovascular disease. So, you know, we have to continue to watch this evolve. And I think if you're at a point where you've achieved your weight loss goal and you're wondering, should I come off this? You may want to rethink that, you know, not because of the worry of like, oh, gaining my weight back or, you know, the dependency issue, I'm going to be on this shit forever. No, you dial back your dose to where you can start to eat again. You dial back your dose to where your appetite isn't completely strangled. And now you just use enough to know that it's helping you assist these processes of handling blood sugar and inflammation and potentially avoiding these other problems that may or may not, you know, get you down the road. So I'm not a big fan of sitting here saying anything should be a lifelong drug if you don't want it to be. And you guys know my position on peptides, NAD, glutathione, testosterone use. Like, I feel like these are not drugs in the capacity. They're things that are part of my therapeutic supplemental programs. And I'm kind of eager and excited that this is another add-on that'll help me, live a longer, healthier life.
Yeah, for sure.
Hell yeah. Cool. Everything?
I think, and you asked about the other one, Jeff, because I botch this one all the time. What's the name of the one that's coming up?
So, well, some people say it's Retatrutide.
Oh, good luck saying that. Semaglutide was hard to learn.
Retatrutide.
Are they systematically and harder to say?
Listen, I got to break it out.
I think they intentionally.
It's Retatrutide, right?
So it's gone from semaglutide, which took me a week to learn. Tirzepatide took me a while to learn.
Retatrutide. So I always break it out so I could. So it's Retatrutide. So it's a GLP,
a GIP.
So just like semaglutide's GLP, tirzepatide's GLP, GIP. This one's a GLP, GIP, and glucagon-like. So it's kind of stimulating from 3 different pathways. So now it's a trifecta. Do I think it's better? I don't know. We'll see.
They're saying that one's going to have more side effects with energy issues. And
as in positive side effects, you mean?
Well, one of the negative side effects of all these drugs is nausea and like digestion issues. Like that's the number one. Semaglutide has it more pronounced than tirzepatide does, but tirzepatide has a more pronounced effect on energy levels
because of blood sugar.
Because of blood sugar, because of the GIP. And then this new one is they're saying the even more severe kind of side effect is people are going to feel more tired and lethargic. But you get over that, you get used to that. It's like your body kind of adapts itself. So the first couple of weeks can be a little rough.
And that's kind of where the dosing comes in to the person, adjusting it depending on the goal.
I expect, I think Eli Lilly's making this one, right? So once Eli Lilly gets the FDA approval, which will probably
we'll guinea pig ourselves first.
Yeah, probably be in the next 3 to 4 months, depending on how fast the FDA moves. And obviously they move quickly for these companies.
Yeah, for big companies, they move pretty quick.
It'll be the next big one, so where the next one keeps
name.
And for our business, I'm not upset at it, because people who've tried semaglutide with success, what's the next best one? Then they'll try tirzepatide, and then they'll be like, okay, what's the next one? And I would say this, like, not just because it's the new better one doesn't mean it's the new better one for you.
Yeah.
We have plenty of people who have tried tirzepatide with a result, and then go to semaglutide and are like, this one is so much more better for me. And then likewise, I got people who can't handle semaglutide and are looking for another option, and tirzepatide was just what they needed in order to get the results. And then maybe, like I said, the new one, the Retatrutide, retarded.
I was going to say, it sounds a little retarded.
Ratatouille. Yeah, when that one comes out, it may be the perfect fit for a lot of people who have either struggled with achieving their goal, or for those who have maxed out the effects of others.
You hit it right on the head. Like you're going to have people that, because they've been on semaglutide or they've been on tirzepatide, and over time they've already gotten to a high dose and they're kind of missing some of the stuff they're looking for if they're not to their goal. Like, I think it gives another option. And I would tell you, I've seen people go on semaglutide, no response whatsoever, put them on tirzepatide, and all of a sudden their hunger's controlled, they're satiated, and vice versa. Obviously, as of recent, people want to go on tirzepatide, they think it's better because it's newer, and they don't respond, and you put on semaglutide, like, holy cow, so it just depends on the person and seeing what they respond to. But I think it's given us a bigger arsenal to be able to help people out and adjust it to people. And, I think that's the most exciting thing about like the world we're in. To be honest with you, I think even dulaglutide back with Trulicity is good enough for like how we would use it for weight loss, but but
that one can take it like more frequent.
It was more frequent. It becomes a pain in the butt. So like, I'm curious to see the response. We'll keep you posted, because I'll guinea pig it on myself.
Ratatouille-eyed. Yeah. Got it. All right, perfect. So guys, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the Manlab, whichever platform you're looking or listening to this. Also, bit.ly/TClinicsUSA, 10% off your first package, whether that's testosterone, semaglutide, tirzepatide, Retatrutide when it comes out, or any sort of peptides that you're interested in. Mention the Manlab, 10% off. Subscribe. See you guys next time. Peace.